I'm Forrest Tanaka, and I'm going to do part 2 of the real estate photo shoot. Last time I did the video for the kitchen shoot, and so tonight I'm going to do a smallest bedroom, my daughter's bedroom, which I forgot to measure it. I think it's probably like 13 feet by 12 feet or so. And so just like in the kitchen shoot, the big point will be to make it look big. And to do that, one thing is I cleared out a lot of stuff in the room, like even some big bookshelves, and just got rid of a lot of the clutter. And of course the other thing we need to do is to use a lens with a wide field of view, because that'll make the room look really big. And I have some choices on that. One is 50mm prime, which is what I'm using to film this video right now. When I was trying it, it had just too small of a field of view. Now, of course, I can do a panorama with it, but the problem was that even the vertical field of view was too small. Now, I could do a gridded panorama, but I just don't have the software for that. I'm using Photoshop CS3, and I think it was CS4 that introduced gridded panoramas. So that's not an option. What is an option is this. This is a Tamron 11 to 18mm ultra wide angle lens. And it's not a great quality lens, but for a real estate photo shoot it'd be okay, and I would probably use this in a lot of cases. But I did find in this case the field of view was actually still a little bit too small to cover the entire room. And I didn't really want to do a panorama with a lens that has so much distortion, being such a wide angle lens. But I would use this in many cases. The lens I will use is this. It is a 24 to 70 L class lens, f2.8. Not a wonderful lens, mostly because, you know, it's a zoom that goes pretty wide, and so the corners get pretty soft. And I've even had this lens repaired because some parts on the inside came out of alignment, and even after the repair the corners are still soft, especially when you're at the wide angles. We'll just live with it because I just don't have a lot of choice here. And for a real estate photo, which is probably going to be on the web and on a small flyer, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference, the soft edges. And also, I'm going to be stopped down quite a bit, so the softness is actually not so bad when it's stopped down. The aperture, I mean. So this is what I'll use. Also, it will be a panorama. It will be a panorama because the field of view is too small horizontally. It is big enough vertically. Now, the reason it is big enough vertically is because, as all panoramas should be taken, I'll be mounting the camera sideways in portrait mode and taking the panorama that way. That way you get a big vertical field of view. And to do that, I'll be using this. This is the camera I'll be using is a 5D Mark II that I'm using to film this right now. And I have this. This is the battery grip for it, and I have an L bracket from Really White Stuff, which has a Arca Swiss system, so that normally you'd mount it like this. I'm out of focus there. Normally you'd mount it like this, but I'll be mounting it sideways, like that, and taking the panorama that way. So let's take a look at the actual shoot. Well, here's the room, and as you can see I have all the lights turned on. So that makes three desk lights basically, plus an overhead light there. Outside it's early evening, so it's getting a little dark, so I'm gonna have to rush this a little bit so that the interior lights don't become too bright relatively. And here's the camera setup. This is 5D Mark II. Here's the 24 to 70 lens. Now I have it set up to make a panoramic shot using this nodal offset from Really White Stuff. You can see it's right at the very limit because the nodal point of this lens is way up here when it's out at, where are we? We're at 24mm, the widest it'll go. And to light up the room, I have this Alien Bees B800. It's gelled orange to match the color of the lights. That's a CTO gel. And I'm firing this with a radio popper, like this, attached with a phone cable. And this plug disables the optical slave. So now if we turn everything on, turn on the radio popper, and it should go pow. There we go. And, oops, I'll turn on the transmitter, radio popper transmitter. I'm just guessing it's on now. There we go. That's firing the test button. And I have it set up so that the Group 2 switch, this is a Radio Popper Junior X System Studio, so you can actually control the output of the alien bees, the power of the alien bees with these group knobs. I have it set to about a medium. I tested it earlier so that it matches, well, it overcomes the exterior light at that level. And my exposure is set to, let's see how well you can see this, 1/10 of a second at f18, so I have it stopped down really far. I want everything in the room to be sharp. The fact that it's at it's at 24 millimeter focal length will help with that a lot, even more than the aperture. So now we should be all set. I'm going to take this shot from right to left, or sorry, from left to right from the camera's point of view, and we'll take a shot each time. Now I have this pointed, sort of the alien bees pointed behind the camera, and I set up this piece of foam core. It just happened to be able to jam into that space without falling down, so that's helpful. And so now I'll take all these shots. I converted the photos to Photoshop format, so now I'm going to make a panorama out of them using just standard Photoshop photo merge. This is Photoshop CS3. I'll use cylindrical, and here are the 5 photos from the shoot. And we'll see how well this does. And there we go. Now I pointed the camera downward slightly so that I can get the floor in front of the bed. If I pointed it straight, it actually cut part of the bed off, which I didn't want. But because I pointed it down, we end up with this trapezoidal shape. And so we'll fix that later. It is at a slight angle because the camera wasn't quite straight. It was pretty close, so let's straighten that up. Just roughly. Looks like it's about there. I'll rotate the canvas. And there we go, that looks better. And actually I should flatten this. I don't need the individual pieces. And then I'm going to click on the icon and crop it to get rid of all the unneeded space. And I will stop there as far as Photoshop's concerned. I'll save this. And I'm going to re-import it back into Lightroom. So that looks pretty good. Let's first crop it. Just to get rid of all the funny stuff, and I don't need to constrain the crop. So about there should be good. And I'll narrow it a bit. Don't need it quite that wide, and of course that would overflow the bounds of the panorama anyway. And for a little safety, let's lower that a bit. Okay, so that looks pretty good, and I notice this line is quite straight. There's a little bit of barrel distortion, and there's some distortion there, so let's clean that up using the lens correction. Now, since this is a panorama, it probably wouldn't be any good to use the automatic correction because it doesn't really apply. So since this part is straight and the right hand is not, let's rotate it slightly. That's a good starting point. Let's also correct some of the pin cushioning, the barrel distortion there. And let's adjust the vertical. Now, as I said in the kitchen photo shoot, it's important that real estate shots have walls that are completely straight. Otherwise, it just looks a little bizarre and really distracting. So let's just do the best we can here, get those lines straight. And how's that looking? I think that's actually looking pretty good, possibly slightly off. Adjust the vertical here a little bit more. And I'd say that should just about do it. So if we compare it against the original photo I took, we can see that the lighting here is much better. We still have the glaring outdoors, but that's okay because the inside is bright this time. Also, shooting into the corner. Shooting into corners helps make a room look big. And obviously we have a very wide field of view because this is a panorama. And that also makes a room look big. Of course, we have a lot of curved lines here, but that's to be expected and to be accepted, I think. Others may not feel that way. I think it's fine. If you don't like that, there's other ways to put the panorama together. But I think you lose a lot of resolution when you try to make the lines too straight. But I think for what's not really that big of a bedroom, this is looking pretty nicely big. And of course it helps that I removed a couple of bookshelves and some other clutter. I even moved this light. This actually belongs on her desk. So I think we have a nicely lit photo. Again, as I mentioned in the kitchen photo shoot, it's important to make sure the light doesn't look like it's coming from any particular spot. And the alien bees that we have just barely to camera right does that for us. Because it's bouncing against the wall and that piece of foam core. So I think that really helps. Let's adjust some things here a little bit, or maybe a lot, to recover some of the highlight details. And I think we have a nice real estate photo. Well, thanks a lot for watching. Again, I hope that was helpful. And also thanks once again for all the subscriptions and YouTube channel subscriptions and comments. It really helps me a lot too. The next one will be a strobist shot, and this will actually be an entry to the Martin Bailey photography community for his August assignment. The theme will be glass of water. I've been trying to think of some ideas, and I'll videotape one of them. Hopefully shortly. It won't be too long. So I will see you then.